Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with George Ortega, Mitch J, Trick Slattery, WSD, and Pafo, who is listening, but I'm not sure if he's going to say anything or not in this episode. Although he may, if he gets excited and has something to add. But okay, so for the topic, I want to basically explain how I got this idea. So Jamie was asking me, without blame, how do we stop Trump? And so I said a better question is, with blame, how do you stop Trump? And so whatever method you use to stop Trump or stop whoever from doing what you consider harmful, why not use that same method and yet without the blaming them psychologically? Like, I see absolutely no reason why somebody can't make efforts to stop somebody from doing harm without blaming them and believing that that person freely chose it. Because, guys, you know that people, when they hear that we don't have a free will, they think, oh, well, we can't blame anyone. And so then they go into this whole thing that they accuse us of saying we let everybody out of jail. And none of us are saying that.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, so we're not saying that. And so this is where we can discuss that, yes, there is such a thing as trying to stop harmful actions, all without blaming the person, because the blame is basically a psychological thing where on some level you're mad at the person because they chose to do something and you punish them because they deserve it. But we don't need to do any of that. But we still have to realize there's harmful people and try to figure out what we can do to prevent harm. So George, I'm sure you have some thoughts on the Trump thing as well as some other things in general. So what do you think so far?
Yeah, all right. It's interesting because in politics, it gets a bit more complicated. In other words, from the perspective of those of us who want to kind of like disempower Trump, want to attack him, want to kind of like just like render him powerless, we're better able to do that to the extent that we don't allow our emotions to overwhelm us. You know, to the extent that we don't hate the guy and we're not like filled with this this hostility toward him, I think we can probably take him down better. But so in other words, like, and we all know how to do that. Basically, he's not responsible for anything that he's done, but to serve as a deterrent, because like if he gets away with it, then who knows who the Trump 2.0 might be. That's kind of like scary.
Actually, I've said that he's actually Bush 2.0.
Yeah, okay, but but the complication is that in our world today, where everybody kind of like accepts this idea of free will, and they're like years, if not decades, from understanding we don't have a free will. Emotions move people. In other words, like in politics, sometimes what did Trump do? Trump got people angry, got people blaming the Mexicans and women and all these people, and that worked. And so sometimes, in order to kind of like to counter that, you may need to rely on that same strategy. Otherwise, it's kind of like, like if somebody's coming at you with a gun and you choose, well, I'm going to be pacifist or something, you're in a very, weakened position. So in other words, like while we may want to just not approach it on a personal level from the blaming perspective, it may be necessary to get, for example, his supporters to blame him when he hasn't gotten them the jobs, or to blame him when he hasn't fulfilled his promises.
Which he's not going to.
Most politicians don't keep the promises they used to get elected.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's an open question. Like, even though of course we know fundamentally no one's to blame, is it the only way in order to get people outraged enough to do something? Does the general public require the use of blame in order to do that or not?
Well, yeah, sorry. I think in the past we've often discussed what's the appropriate language? Like we've talked about words such as responsible and accountable. I, for one, I think I prefer accountable. I think it has less of the connotations within it, although it is essentially saying the same thing. We certainly need to hold people accountable for society to function, but I think the word blame just has too much with it. There's a lot of misunderstanding with that word.
Yeah.
And also, when you use the word accountable, there seems to be less judgment. It just means like you're really focused on problem solving. So, Chandler, are you suggesting that sometimes you have to do more than that, more than just think in the sense of problem solving? Like you actually have to use people's emotions in order to truly manipulate their emotions, I should say.
Well,
in order to truly create change.
Yeah, here's what I'm saying is that even though I tend to be against it because as a matter of principle, I don't want to use people's emotions and encourage feelings of fear or hate to get things done. You know, because I want to find a less intrusive, less violent way in a sense, if you know what I mean, because I feel like that's like psychological abuse to do so. And yet I at the same time wonder, do we actually have to manipulate people's emotions to actually get things done? That's my fear, is that if it's necessary, I don't want it to be necessary, and I hope it's not. I hope that we can all just be rational and just like be these detached philosophers that solve problems without getting emotional and ruining things, if you know what I'm saying.
It's a tough call. It's like how much should we be invested in the game that people, the unfair game that people play? How much should we invest ourselves in that unfair game, or how much should we try to break away from those rules and try to, get people on our side in regards to a better set of rules? It's hard to say because people are emotional creatures, right? So we kind of do have to play to emotions until people start becoming more rational.
Well, yeah, here's a good example of that. Take, for example, now this applies both to religion and legal stuff as well. It happens in religion and politics. Like with religion, you may have someone saying, well, if you don't believe this or live in this way, then you're going to burn in hell forever. And that fear actually does have a power in altering behavior through the emotion of fear. So it can work in some instances. And similarly, if people are afraid that if they commit a certain act that they will go to jail or get the death penalty or something like that, or lose their driver's license, depending on the nature of the crime, that fear of that consequence can deter behavior sometimes. So we know that it sometimes works. Sometimes deters behavior, but it's through the use of fear, and it's like, I can see that it does work sometimes, yet I don't want to be an agent of fear and try to scare people.
Right, and so here's the other approach would involve what I was talking about before the podcast of like basically this idea of love conquering hate. Trump was promoting hate, right? And that invites kind of like a counter aggression against him. That's basically the way the world works. But, there is like theoretically the possibility that rather than attacking him and blaming him and just like, intensifying the conflict, we take the quote unquote higher road. We start to kind of like, focus on love and goodness and like our higher natures. And what that might do is it might shame, it might just by contrast show how vile Trump has been. And that's another way to fight.
Is there anything specific that you have in mind, George?
Well, just the idea of like, for example, Trump made fun of the disabled. He's ridiculed and mocked women. So like, let's say we all start talking about the need to love each other more, to care for each other more, to really be good and respect each other more. So in other words, like we're promoting from a positive standpoint the world we want to see, rather than like attacking him for attacking, this notion of civility.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an important point. And see, this is something I personally need to work on, because sometimes I go at things from such a negative perspective. You know, like it could, like, I get into this mode where, like, it's terrible that people are racist and sexist and speciesist and they're just so evil, and I feel like I want humanity to all die out and push that hypothetical button and wipe out all life because we're just so bad. And which is true, but at the same time, that message of negativity and is so hopeless negative that people don't listen to it, and therefore it doesn't have the power to cause positive change. Whereas if we can go the whole positive, encourage love, and basically preach the opposite message of what Trump is saying. Love the disabled, love the Mexicans and the blacks and the women and the cows and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think the same way too, but I'm more of the angry side. Just like with me, my problem is sometimes when it comes to stupidity of people, I have very limited patience when it comes to stupidity.
Yes, exactly. See, and I get that way too.
Yeah.
I get that way. Jamie gets that way. And when Jamie gets too angry, he threatens to punch people on Twitter. And I don't want that happening anymore. So I'm trying to figure out how to improve my approach so I can help Jamie out.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on this, because it's a tough call, because I know that some people do respond to ridicule and others don't. So like, if you ridicule somebody because of their poor reasoning, a lot of times that type of ridicule is something that will it might not initially get to them, but it's something that will cause them to think about their position later on. Whereas if you don't do that ridicule, if that ridicule doesn't happen, a lot of times they're able to stay in that position without changing it. So it's a tough call to how we play the psychologies of people.
Yeah, it is a tough call.
And sometimes it's not an either or. Sometimes, those of us who feel more comfortable with going on the attack, that's the strategy that we should use. Whereas others of us who really want to, just, take the higher road and talk about our ideal virtues. We would want to promote love and understanding and all. I mean, these things can work. It's kind of like you've heard of good cop, bad cop, right? You have a suspect, so like one cop is really nice to the person, the other cop is threatening them. So these approaches can go hand in hand.
Yeah, though I still think, George, that you're right that about the positive part being very important. I think that should be actually more than the negative, though I think the negative is still a key factor. So I think like a good mix is probably the best way to do it, but at the same time, you want more of the positive than the negative, because then as soon as you have too much negative, that's when people start avoiding you, because of it becomes more of people don't, I don't know, they just move away, start moving away. It's like,
I know.
Like you see that with PETA, for example, or certain animal rights movements that are too aggressive. They start making people move away from them because of their aggression is just a little too over the top.
Like, for example, they speak on the negative too much, or they're too hard on the negative, or sometimes like my father, he'll like talk about the past and how bad the past was. I'm like, oh man, I love you, but seriously.
Yeah, and what's interesting?
Come on, yeah. I mean, like I said, one time I was down there. This is like the worst time I had in Florida. One time I was down there in Florida, he would not shut up about what happened in the past. It was like heavy negative shit too. I'm like, hey, yeah. But
I think something else we have to take into account, and this, plays into the whole, no free will thing, is that the psychology of Republican conservatives and their supporters is to a great extent different than the psychology of liberal Democrats. Right. What I mean, for example, yes, if we start going on the attack, and just like, Trump is the new Hitler and all that stuff, that will eventually turn off some of us, because that's not who we are. But like when Republican conservatives use that as attack, that actually energizes them. These people are out of their fucking minds. They just,
they're just crazy.
Well, yeah. I think the term we're looking for is pathos, right? So I'm not really, I don't really support the idea of using underhanded methods to try to accomplish a goal, right? I think the means are important. Some people say, the ends justify the means, but I think the means are really, really important. However, with that being said, it's not always, logos, right? Sometimes it is about emotion. And I think it's not necessarily wrong to try to use the fact that people have emotions in order to help them see the truth. So if we could make Trump feel guilty about the kinds of things he says and does, I don't think that's really a bad thing. It's really just a way of enlightening someone as opposed to a way of hurting that person, right? Because we're not saying
that would be hard to do.
Well, I think, Trick and Chandler and George, they all pointed out how it could be done. For example, if you're talking about women's rights like crazy and how you want equality for women and women are like this and women are like that, and then someone makes a statement like, let's grab them by the pussy and I can get any woman I want, I think it would certainly cause some disturbance within them. I think it would be very difficult to continue that sort of locker room talk once the zeitgeist, once the people no longer have that sort of mindset. Once that's out of the ether, I think might even feel ashamed to sort of speak in that way. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to try to create that sort of environment.
Yeah, it's interesting because here's the deal. Like, there is a genuine thing such as feeling bad about something that you said or did and regretting it and realizing it's not right, and yet not feeling guilty in the idea that you're really blameworthy. Like somebody who gets that free will is an illusion won't feel guilty in that sense because they know they couldn't have done otherwise, but they could also realize they were wrong. And that whole thing about the whole women thing is an important thing because obviously people have the wrong attitude about women. They view them as second-class citizens, as lesser than men, and as property. It still goes on.
And you guys, we have to appreciate that over 40% of women voted for Trump. So there's something extremely dysfunctional about them that I don't know if they're like, they're undersexed or something. And they were like, he was kind of like, activating some kind of like libido in them or something. But, for them to accept that.
Yeah, and that's what? You lost me there, George. I don't get that.
Oh, no. You guys haven't read. I mean, that people have been theorizing, because like, what explains these women, people were having, some of these women were having like sexual dreams about Trump. I'm not making this up.
What?
No way.
This is the first time I heard of this.
No way, man.
Trust me, I followed this. Like, they're trying to explain. They're trying to like understand how do 40% of American women support Trump after he said all these things. And then again, like, so they're coming up with all these theories. Something has to explain it.
So they just gonna ignore what the hell they see. I don't ignore shit anybody say. So they just completely ignore what the hell he said.
Well, it wouldn't be 40% anyway. It would be more like because like 49% of people that could vote didn't vote. 49% didn't vote. 26% voted for Trump, and then 26% voted for Hillary. So I don't think it's really 40% of the population.
No, you're right. 40% of the voting population.
No, I'm saying 49% of the voting population didn't vote in this election.
No, well, 40% of the people who voted, of the women who voted.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, now, so there are stats on how many men and how many women actually voted, aren't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't know where to look for it.
Yeah. See, that's the tricky thing is Like, yeah, because like somehow find it hard to believe though that it was really women voting for Trump after the things he said about women. But of course, you never know.
I don't think those stats actually do exist because there's no stats that show who voted for what. So
right.
I don't think...
You're right. There's the exit polls. That's close as they can get, and then,
yeah. So it's hard to truly know, but it is interesting, like how of course people can say all kinds of outrageous things, but there are still people who voted for him. There's still people who support him, and it's a really weird thing. And of course, even though of course I wasn't really too keen on talking politics, as I never am, I am interested in the psychology of this. That just the idea, like, how does this work with people?
Right. And think of what happened like in the 30s with Hitler. The German people were, they're a civilized people, right? They were railing from the Depression and from World War I, where they, their national self-esteem was lowered a lot. And so Hitler, just like step by step, targeting certain people and all, got them to be more and more aggressive. And that's the danger in Trump. That's what Trump is doing. That's what we have to, like, in terms of the psychology, that's what we have to counter, very powerfully.
Yeah, it's very interesting, that of course different people come up with different theories about how Trump got as many votes as he did, how he won the election. And I saw this article. I think I posted to my Facebook timeline, because I get some weird stuff in my email. It was something about the reason Christians voted for Trump that liberals don't understand. And of course, you have to consider it came from a Catholic website, so it's weird. But I still get...
Okay, don't expect the whole credibility then.
Right, yeah, but I still get this stuff in my email, because even though I unsubscribed to a lot of stuff, because I had been subscribed to every so-called pro-life email list a long time ago, some of this stuff still leaks into my email occasionally, and so the title caught my attention, and it's really weird about something about Obama attacking Christians or something like that, and I got so lost and confused on that. But it was trying to make it sound like that Christians were voting for Trump.
Chandler, in order to understand evangelicals, you have to understand, like, to them, it's like the lesser of two evils. In other words, like, what brings a lot of them together is the anti-abortion stance, right?
Yeah.
So on the one hand, they have Trump, being an asshole, whatever, just like saying whatever, just to abuse people. On the other hand, you have the idea that if Hillary wins, she's going to appoint a Supreme Court justice that's going to uphold Roe versus Wade. And basically, like, our world pretty much aborts as many fetuses as people die each year of natural causes, like between 50 and 60 million. So from their perspective, it really wasn't about Trump. I mean, it was like the lesser of two evils for them. They, that's kind of actually, like, I'm an extreme liberal, but this abortion thing, we've got to deal with it.
Yeah, it is a serious issue, George, and yeah, because part of the reason I brought it up is, look, yeah, on one hand, I of course think Trump is absolutely awful, but at the same time, only a few short years ago, it would have been possible that I would have been one of the Trump supporters, and just knowing that makes it really hard to criticize the...
I'm sorry, I would never support Trump.
Yeah, here's the deal.
I see through, I saw right through his facade, man.
But yeah, like George said, though, this is a case where... okay, let me finish here. What George was saying, for them, it's a case of lesser of two evils in the opposite direction. Because where, like, a lot of you guys were saying, well, that Hillary is the lesser of the two evils between Trump, some of them are looking at the other way around. And so this comes down to which of the moral or political issues that they consider to bear more weight than others. Like, which issue takes priority over others. And so there are going to be people that will be like, for example, they may hear that Trump says terrible things about women, and he wants to bomb the families, the whole families of terrorists or something. You know, they may hear that, but in their minds they may think that that's not so bad as long as he puts pro-life people in the Supreme Court. You know, so according to the way they look at it, they may look at Trump as the lesser of two evils. You know, and so I do think, yeah, there may be some legitimate explanations as to what was going on in the minds of some Trump voters. And it's just really sad. Like, I feel that, because, you know, guys, I've been torn on that whole thing, too, because that was a big part of the whole thing of why I didn't vote. It's just, it is a tough emotional roller coaster.
I think a lot of people voted for Trump just to throw a wrench into the system. I think they were just sick of the political system, and they thought Trump's the way to go. He's not a politician. He's just some crazy guy. Let's just put him in there and throw a wrench into the whole system. Of course, it's messed up that they did that, but I think a lot of people did.
It sounds like a bad idea too, but
no, you're right, Trick, and I've been just learning about this now. I didn't realize. Basically, it's what's known as populism. And the idea is like there's a left-wing version and a right-wing version. And they're both against the elite. People like, you know, interestingly, ironically, the rich and powerful, the established order. So basically with left-wing populism, they basically directly attack the established order like Sanders did. With right-wing populism, they attack the established order, but their means is by blaming minorities and blaming immigrants and blaming these different disenfranchised groups. But you're right, it really is like a deep satisfaction with our leaders. And it doesn't, this isn't just about this country. There's like a lot of Europe now has fallen to right-wing populism with all the immigrants, you know, from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Trick may have a point there. Like, yeah, some people, they just want to see change in the system, and they're tired of the status quo. And so by just causing chaos, their idea is that they're in this never-ending war, and so they want to initiate a self-destruct sequence to end it or something, like a real desperate move because they're tired of it.
And it worked. It worked. I mean, people are freaking. You know, people. God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Why couldn't Bernie Sanders have been the benefactor from all this, huh?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, personally, I thought Bernie Sanders is pretty cool, and you know, my friend Monique.
And the most qualified.
Oh yeah, I think.
I have no doubt he would have won if he was the.
Yeah, he would definitely won.
Democratic.
Yeah, I believe that too. Cause like I'm pretty most people like you guys all kind of like Bernie Sanders, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I was going to vote for Bernie.
And guess what?
Easy.
Because Bernie Sanders didn't win, I was going to vote for another. So I voted Jill Stein.
I also voted Stein, but I guess in the end it wasn't really.
Yeah, I was hoping she would get at least 5%. If you get like 5%, you heard that she gets some kind of $10 million, something for her next run or something like that. Yeah.
I think Trick made a good point in the past. If we really want change, we shouldn't really be so preoccupied with presidential elections, although there are a good opportunity for lesser-known candidates to be broadcast in the public scene. We have to start doing things like right now. Now would be the best time to start, you know.
Well, I think this election season kind of shows the problem with our voting system, for example. So I think it's the best time for people to start trying to make change for the next time around, right? For change our voting system, get rid of the electoral college, make it the other kind of voting where you don't need a two-party system. The
parliamentary
instant runoff voting.
Only thing I hate about the two candidates like Hillary and Trump, this is one thing that really burns me on. None of them mention climate change.
Oh yeah, Trump does. Trump doesn't believe in climate change.
No, how to solve it. That's what I meant. You know what I
Well,
meant.
that's it. He doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Jamie was
WFD,
just talking
yeah,
about
like,
that earlier.
Trump is a threat to the country, right? But he is a very minute, teeny little threat compared to climate change, and that's like,
Yeah,
and nobody wants to talk about
Bernie
it.
said, you gotta treat that as a World War One level threat, something like that. Yeah.
He just who did he hire? I forget. It was a climate change denier, but I forgot what role it was for. But he just hired somebody that was a total climate
The
change.
EPA, Environmental Protection Agency.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, that's crazy.
Bush did the same thing.
Oh, did he? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Didn't I tell y'all that this motherfucker is Bush 2.0?
Also, Michael Pence also doesn't believe in climate change. And,
of course, he's a religious nutcase, of course.
And Trump is pretending not to believe in climate change. Trump doesn't care, but Michael Pence really doesn't believe in it.
Oh yeah,
There's
he doesn't
a
believe in it.
He thinks
He wants evolution, or he wants creation in the science class, right?
Oh man,
yeah.
see, and I hadn't heard.
Going to open up, and Jesus will come down here and save all our bacon.
Oh man, yeah, guys. Actually,
revolution, even though we're some antichrist. Yeah, some revolution. Yeah.
Oh man.
Nothing to do with some antichrist that we were supposed to see by now.
Well, guys, yeah, I have to say this is actually the first time I've heard anything about Michael Pence. Like,
he's worse. Like
Michael Pence. Go ahead, Trek, please.
He's worse than Trump. And believe it or not, if there's somebody who's worse than Trump, it's his vice president. He's just like he's a religious nut, basically.
Michael Pence thinks gays shouldn't be in the military, and women shouldn't be in the military, and women shouldn't work. He's against gay marriage, and he's against gay civil
union. What year does he think this is?
This is who Michael Pence was like one of the face of the Tea Party. This is a guy as governor in Indiana, okay? The governor before him, also a Republican, gave about, 80 pardons in a 12-year span. Michael Pence has given 3. Michael Pence is like the worst person ever.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So
it's like since the year 1890.
It's like Trump goes, who can I have as vice president where I won't get shot? There you go. Pence.
Oh, the plot thickens. I see.
Yeah. He's just basically secured. He's not going to get impeached. He's not going to get shot. People do not want Pence in.
Oh, I forgot the best one. He thinks that smoking doesn't lead to lung cancer, and of course he's taking 10
No.
There you go, guys.
Oh no, you're. And here, look.
There you go, people. Here's who y'all voted for.
Oh man, yeah. See,
y'all voted for this, and like I said, I refuse to use his name and president in the same sentence.
Well, what I do is I don't refer to him as Mike Pence. I call him Michael Pence because Mike is what you call your friend. So
Michael Pence, okay.
This takes us back to the whole we're poking fun, we're ridiculing, right? But it's because we know who this guy is or what he stands for, and we understand how problematic it is, and we're like, it should be ridiculed because that's what people need. We need a little ridicule.
The global flood happened 6,000 years ago.
Let me ask you guys something. Would it be, within the no free will paradigm, understanding, but, pragmatically helpful or necessary? For example, let's say people launched a global boycott of Trump products and initiated, let's say, hundreds, if not thousands of lawsuits against his companies to try to bankrupt him. Would that be a valid counterattack, or would that be going too far, too aggressive?
I think that's valid.
I think that's perfectly valid.
In the NBA, for example, the National Basketball Association, for those of you who are not sports enthusiasts,
like me,
many teams are no longer staying in Trump brand hotels because that's their civil protest. That's one of the forms of civil protest they're showing. So entire NBA teams going,
don't blame them.
We refuse to stay when we're on the road in a Trump hotel. So there you go. That's something. I guess.
Wow.
I don't know. I think it's unprecedented. I've never heard of organizations that are supposed to be neutral, doing these kinds of political actions. So I think it's a good thing.
Right, Mitch, and in other words, like, so this might be kind of like a blessing in disguise in the sense that, like, this kind of sentiment that Trump caused to come up to the surface might have been there for decades. Just like it was like, people wouldn't talk about it, but they'd vote according to it. And it was just like, it was like a bad influence on our world. So now it's out there. And you have these alt-right people and the white supremacists coming out, and so they're out there. And so, like, now we know that what the problem is. And yeah, so now it's time for the backlash. Now it's our turn to really do a major counterattack in ways that we've never done before, like the NBA boycotts and stuff.
Huh. Yeah, I don't believe them, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, because I think everybody has their form of protest when they don't approve of something. They want, like, for example, the first time I ever heard of a boycott was when people were trying to boycott Chick-fil-A because something about some CEO said about not liking gay marriage or something like that. And that was the first time I actually heard of people boycotting things. And I'm like, well, this is really interesting how people's beliefs about various things would cause them to not buy something from certain companies. And so that means that as people are persuaded about certain things, then certain companies go bankrupt. And this is one of those weird things. I just think about, well, that's one kind of thing that citizens themselves can do that does not even involve voting in elections, but it's still a statement. It's still a protest.
I would be remiss if I didn't point out the Montgomery bus boycott, right? Martin Luther King. Remember the big bus boycott? That was a big, big deal during the civil rights movement. But yes, I see your point. So certainly you're aware of that one, for example.
Actually, no, that was before my time.
Okay, fair enough. That's okay. But that's a very famous historical one, Do you remember black people had to sit at the back of the bus, so they boycotted the buses because, it's unfair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look into some more of that. Look up this movie called the Luther Vandross story. The Vandross. God damn it, I can't pronounce it right now for some reason. It's
Luther, man. Yeah.
Luther Vandross, I believe. I can't pronounce his name.
You got it.
Luther Vandross. Yes, I know Luther
Vandross. Yeah.
I know.
All right. I didn't think I was pronouncing it correctly. Sorry.
Okay.
And check that out.
About it? Okay.
And of course, that was the guy that pretty much trained.
Guys, I want to introduce something to hear what you guys think of it, because it really it's another component that nobody's talking about. It's kind of like the other climate change. We liberals, Democrats, are saying how horrible Trump is, how horrible his supporters are for what they're saying and all this stuff. Consider like the fact that the vast majority of people are not vegans, and consider they're buying their livestock, their poultry, chicken, dairy, and all that stuff from factory farms that essentially torture 60 billion animals each year. So like, and this is difficult from an atheist perspective, because I guess your belief is there is no universal justice, whatever. But, aside from that, I mean, can we really claim in any substantial, significant sense, moral superiority over the Trump people when we as a collective are so horrible? So in other words, what Trump is doing is really just very minor compared to what we were all doing to these animals.
I completely agree with that, George. Because it's one thing, to criticize somebody who kills humans of other races or rapes women or grabs them by the whatever, it's one thing to criticize someone for that, but then realize that what we're doing to non-human animals goes so far beyond any of the horrors that Trump or Pence might do to humans, then it really throws a whole new light on this whole thing, because I do think that's like got to be one of the most important things ever.
Yeah, but we have to keep the issues separate. Like, so whether Hillary or Trump became presidents, that wasn't going to change on the animal front. So, but the other things do change. Like, he wants to dismantle Obamacare, right? So, how many people are going to be out of health insurance now because he's president? Because him and the Senate and the House are all Republicans. So no. It is a big deal for these other issues, even though this one horrific issue obviously isn't, is still there. Basically.
Yeah. And how about the abortion one? Because again, I have been pro-choice because I'm pro-democracy. Right. But something tells me that it's really wrong. And my feeling is the Democrats have been fighting the wrong fight for decades. In other words, I think the fight should have been, fine, let's have abortion be illegal. But then when young girls have kids, are forced to have kids, we as a society have to ensure that these kids are provided for, that they're not left, forgotten in poverty and nobody cares.
No, yeah. Well, this is another topic we could probably get into, because I'm totally against. I'm totally pro-choice. Basically, I don't think a woman should have
because with me,
a woman's right should have a right to their own body. Basically, and basically what you're doing with abortion is you're taking away that woman's right to her body. You're saying you don't have a right to this body. You're now an incubator for 9 months, and you don't have a choice over this. You don't have a decision.
Yeah, what he said.
Well,
yeah. See, I don't think it's really that simple, guys. And I don't want things to get too hostile over this, but I really think that what you have with this whole case, where you have Democrats and you have Republicans who tend to fall on one or two extremes of this whole thing. You'll have a lot of Democrats or supposedly liberals that are just pro-choice and a woman has a right to her own body even if it means killing someone. So and they just don't look beyond that. And then you've got Republicans who say that they're pro-life, although of course I question their sincerity, but then they're all pro-war and pro-guns, and of course then again there is the whole what we do to non-human animals. And so in a sense, we have all these people with these different positions. And I know that people want to keep, like what Trick said, they want to keep these issues separate. They want to take each of these issues separately. And yet I feel like this is all part of a whole. It all needs to fit together. It needs to be consistent, where we have a holistic mindset, where we're have a system by which all of these issues all make sense and we come to an agreement.
But they're separate issues, so we have to kind of take them separately. Like for instance, I'm all against killing animals, but when it comes to abortion, I don't think that is nearly as ethically problematic, because I don't think a fetus or embryo experiences in any way like a animal does. So it's a big difference there. So
yeah, I agree. It's not. It's like I don't think it's about pain. Because basically with animals it's pain. So I don't think the fetuses, hopefully they don't experience pain. But, you raised the argument of that it's a woman's right to her body. Mm-hmm. But we have to consider there's precedents, for example, that don't allow people to commit suicide. It's actually against law.
I'm totally against that one.
Right.
I think people should be able to commit suicide.
Right. And the other thing is euthanasia, for doctors to assist people.
I'm totally for euthanasia too.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, see, all these life and death issues are very interesting, because some people they view them all as separate issues. Well, other people tend to like try to have a holistic, consistent life ethic. They try to find a way to make sense and have it all fit together. And then you have, yeah, like you'll have people who will be, say, for euthanasia but against abortion, or for abortion but against euthanasia. You might
May
have
I,
those. You might
may I
have stuff like that.
May I interject for a moment? I think what you're referring to is something Sam Harris spoke about recently when he was given a question about his opinion about the alt-right and Milo Yiannopoulos, and he talked about how identity politics itself is just absurd, how we should look at things issue by issue. But I want to go back a little bit to what we're saying about death and suicide and everything. I think we obviously will have certain differences of opinion in certain topics. So I don't think we need to be, so this idea of a united front where everyone agrees about this topic, I don't think that's really the approach. But certainly currently people who tend to identify as liberals, Democrats, progressives, certainly have figured out, have a stance on many, many issues, many real important issues that I think everyone, at least in this podcast, is at least open-minded about. So one more quick point I wanted to make about the abortion thing. I don't believe that we should have a government based on morality, whatever that means. Especially, I mean, consider the following. I don't think that cheating on your spouse is a good thing, but I don't think it should be illegal. So my personal take on abortion is criminalization. I don't think abortion is a great thing and you should applaud people for doing it. I think it's usually something done by desperate people. But I don't think these people should pay any kind of fine or should go to jail. So in summary, issue by issue is how we should take things. And I don't think laws should be based on morality.
Well, what's interesting,
I think all laws are based on morality. I mean, it's the reason we lock people away. We lock people away because they're a danger to society.
That's not morality, though.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
No,
that's exactly what morality is.
Let me be very clear about what I'm saying here.
Okay.
I'm saying you can have a government and you can say you have a society and you have laws in order to keep society stable or to protect people. I don't know. I think you're using the word morality in a
society stable is because it's harmful not to. It all comes back down to that.
I think we're using the word different. For example, it's not illegal, to cheat on your wife, but I think most people would think of it as an unethical thing to do. Right?
No.
But okay, I understand you have some very fleshed out views on morality. So when I say morality, I'm not referring to your particular take on the issue. I'm speaking in a very loose and generalized sense.
It's unethical because it causes harm.
But Trick, that is your very specific ideas about morality. But the average person, if you just ask them, they would say, yeah, cheating on someone is immoral. It's unethical.
Yeah, but you got to understand that most of our laws are based on utilitarian ethics. Like there's a whole slew of laws that are just based on the whole harm principle, basically. So we can't really. I don't think we can really bypass that entirely. I understand what you're saying.
Here's the deal. This fundamental difference that some of us co-hosts have about morality plays into this whole thing definitely. But there is something that Mitch said that I am sort of agreeing with here. Now, there's a lot of moral issues, what we consider moral or immoral. So the debate, I do think that if we do have a legal system, that it ought to be based on morality. But which moral issues do we want a government interfering with? I think that's the question. Which issues do we think we should have government intervention, and which do we think are just immoral, but we should not legally send people to jail for those things? That is a debate to be had issue by issue, perhaps.
Well, I want to go back to, for example, suicide, right? Trick, you're saying that people should be able to kill themselves, but let me ask you something. Should a father, who's the provider of the family, should he be allowed to legally, just without any penalty, just leave his family, abandon his family, so they have no support?
A father can do that now without killing himself.
Yeah, they do that all the time.
So
no, but no, he can't do that without penalty. In other words, so the reason is if there's a penalty for abandoning a family, then that kind of says, well, when a father does that, then that's really jeopardizing the livelihood of his kids, his wife and all. So again, the same thing happens when a person decides to kill themselves. They're depriving, especially if it's a father or something, or the head of a household, depriving the family of that sustenance.
Yeah,
you're saying there should be some contingencies, maybe. Who knows? But I mean, yeah, maybe if somebody has a child, maybe there should be some kind of contingency, some kind of monetary thing that happens before they kill themselves.
And the wider point, I guess, is that our laws are really designed to prevent us from hurting either ourselves or each other.
Here's a really clear one, okay? The vast majority of people think that lying is unethical. Okay?
Yeah.
Even little white lies. They'll say little white lies are not good. They're unethical, but it's not illegal. Slander, however, is illegal. Slander and libel are illegal. So when I say we don't want, I understand Trick is using a more generalized definition of the word morality, but I mean, for lack of a better word, morality in the sense that, certain principles and ideals shouldn't be what the laws are based upon. Laws should be based upon exactly what Trick even referenced, this utilitarian, this practical kind of thing. Now,
so what you're saying is it shouldn't be based on morality in general, but it should be based on harm.
Instead of using the word morality, let's use ideals. It shouldn't be based on these principles and ideals. It should be based on very practical concerns. So I think we're in agreement there. To me, laws by the government are about keeping society stable, keeping people healthy and safe and productive.
Yeah, but okay, let's take the animal rights thing for example. We're killing these animals in these horrible conditions. I think it should be illegal because of the harm it's causing.
You think what exactly should be illegal?
Factory farming.
Do you think it should be illegal to kill an animal?
I think it should be illegal to kill an animal. Correct.
Yes, I agree.
Wait. Depends on the circumstances. Because
especially if you're doing it in
your bear is coming at me. I have a shotgun.
All right, let's make it simple. It should be illegal to create animals. In other words, procreate them and then kill them so we can eat them. So this is something I think should be. I think in the future will be illegal.
Trick, are you a vegan, by the way? I never really.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
But so I think in the future it will be illegal. I think in the future we'll be like, wow, that was such a horrific thing that we did in the past.
I agree with you. Although I am not a vegan currently, I have experimented with it a lot, and that's
fine. I mean, you're raised a certain way, right? You're raised a certain
way.
And
suffering. No, yeah. But I guess this is a discussion for another episode. But
yeah, it's
I should probably I'll just reserve my opinions on that particular issue.
Yeah, we could talk about. I mean, yeah, because talking about law and how it relates to, I guess, harm. I think.
Yeah, we might be off topic.
Yeah, we're supposed to be destroying Trump.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
it all comes back to Trump. It all comes back to Trump, right?
Yeah.
It comes back to his policies and him wanting to dismantle Roe versus Wade and Obamacare and all this stuff like that. So it all comes back to.
Well, yeah. See, all these things are related. I think all of these things are important. They are all related because it all comes down to, I do feel that the discussion about morality and how that plays up with legality had does, in a sense, have everything to do with this election, what this politics thing is, and Trump getting in. It all relates because everything's connected anyway, but these things really do connect. And I am glad even though there's no way we could go into all of the depths of each of these issues that we brought up, I am glad to hear these things brought up because it shows that we can actually have a talk about this and try to be reasonable about this, which we need to be. Because the world's in chaos. There's riots and violence and everybody's all mad and blaming each other. But I think, guys, that we're able to do better than that.
Suggest how? What should we do?
Yeah, that's the real question. That's the thing is, we do seem to have, because we have fundamental disagreement about morality and how much law and stuff should be based on morality. I'm finding, how do we agree on what actions to take to reduce harm, including the harm done by Trump and Pence and whatever? That is the thing. How do we find out what that is and reach that agreement?
Well, I mean, we have these general standards of morality that aren't necessarily even related to law. Just a lot of things that Trump said during his campaign are just vile. Just, we thought we kind of outgrew that stuff. We thought that, for a presidential candidate to say the things he said, that just it empowers people to just be vile and just to be disrespectful. So this is something that that reflects on us all. And basically, what do? We have to find a way to get these people to understand how wrong that was, how wrong that is. But again, so how do we do that? I don't know. I think sometimes the right wing could care less about the poor in this country and in other countries. The left wing could care less about the unborn. And so we have these different ideologies. I wonder if there might be, and we don't have to get into this in detail and all, but I'm wondering if there might be a more of an agreement on this cruelty to animals. I mean, so many of us have cats and dogs, and so many of us know that animals are sentient. So I'm wondering if we might be able to use this factory farm, cause as a way to kind of awaken the conscience of society, of both sides.
I think there's too many people against it, or against veganism, basically. They don't understand why they're against it. They just are against it because they eat meat, so they try to support their position, basically.
Yeah. See, and here's the thing, guys, is that of course. So this is why it's unlikely to ever happen. But let's say that there was some vegan running for president, that their big platform, their whole goal was to basically grant other animals the same rights as humans and to ban killing them. Of course, they'd get my vote. Of course, they wouldn't win because, like Trick just said, most people would be against them, so they wouldn't stand a chance. But yeah.
But what if they know they were a vegan?
Consider this. There are let me outline the major evils of our world. Global poverty. About 30,000 kids under the age of 5 die every day of largely preventable poverty-related causes. Abortion, by my perspective, it's about denying these fetuses a life. It's kind of like their rights are being denied. And the other major, or climate change, is...
Wait.
Hold on.
About abortion?
But basically, it's denying the fetus the right to life. So, but the other two are climate change. The problem with climate change is that, you have to be an expert to really understand how amazingly threatening it is, and most people aren't near that. And the other, I think, major harm is, our cruelty of animals. So, like, in other words, so we have dressed to a certain extent the first three. We've explored it, we've debated it, and with climate change, it's like pretty impossible. But this fourth major evil of our world, we haven't begun to explore yet.
Yeah, well, it's about convincing people of that. So, and that's the hard part.
Wait, I don't think I agree with those.
We don't agree with the abortion thing. Obviously, me and Mitch don't agree with the abortion thing.
Oh man.
No, I understand. I hear you.
But yeah, guys, see, this is just it. See, what we experience in our disagreements over some of these issues here is magnified billions of times over with billions of people. How many billions of humans are there on the planet about now? Is it 7 or 8 billion? And we're just
over 7 billion.
Yeah, and we're just 5, and we can't agree. We're only 5 humans, and we can't agree.
So we do have to have just one time where we all just focus on the abortion debate, because it is something that we're kind of split on.
Absolutely.
We never talk about it. It's true. We never talk
right.
about it.
And like, just to show that the world in general can reach a major consensus, 200-300 years ago, slavery was pretty common in the United States and other parts of the world, and we understand now how wrong that is.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, like I said, I think in the future, people we're going to look back and we're going to say, wow, we did that to the animals. Like, I can't believe that. But right now, we have a long way to go to convince people of this.
But I'm wondering, Trick, is I don't see that we've actually made the effort. I mean, there's some activists that are really unorganized and their message isn't getting out there. I'm wondering if there was like a really focused effort, if people might not get it.
But the problem is people are raised with it. So people are raised eating meat, and so when people try to, tell them, oh, you shouldn't do that, then there's a backlash. They automatically become defensive. So that it's the same thing with the free will thing, right? So we have uphill battles in both fronts. Trying to get people to understand that there's no free will, when their psychology says that there is the same type of thing. So
yeah,
we have to.
It's a tough pill to swallow, because they're basically being told everything is wrong. Black is white, up is down, and short is long. That's what it's like. Yeah, telling them the way they were raised is wrong. It threatens their whole concept of reality. And yeah, Trick's right. The free will thing has that effect, but so does the animal thing. And
and part of this is moving us away from religion too. Like a lot of religions, their whole premise is that the animals are here for humans, right?
Well, yeah, actually, but no, I've been debating this with the Jehovah's Witnesses is trying to convert, whatever. But like, basically, no, according to the Bible, at least, it's being cruel to animals is prohibited. That's something that's pretty commonly accepted among, at least Judeo-Christians.
Well, I mean, if you look in the Bible, people offered animal sacrifices to God.
Right? No. There's for example, like with the kosher laws, basically the kosher laws in terms of slaughter were designed to create the least pain. They're relatively painless compared to other slaughter methods. So it's not about like yes, we're allowed to eat animals, we're just not allowed to be cruel toward them.
Right. But that's the whole thing. So people think, their animals are here for them to eat or whatever. Yeah,
unless
maybe not cruelly.
But unless it's a pig, because pigs are unclean. Yeah, there's a verse about that in the Bible.
It says in the Bible that man has dominion over the animals. That's the word I think they like to use.
Yeah, and it's a very, very strange thing with the Bible being full of contradictions. And of course, like, I'm familiar enough with vegan activism and stuff. I know a lot about this. That there are those who want to continue killing animals but kill them painlessly, and then there are others like me who says it's just wrong to kill them point blank, whether or not they feel pain. And so though we're split. Like the vegans are, well, actually they're not vegans if they're still for killing them for food, but you get like the animal welfare versus the animal rights or liberation. There's a huge split between them in the level of how
I don't think there's a way to do it without like, I don't think there's a way to host animals basically without suffering and without basically some kind of death or painful death, to some degree at least. So there's always going to be a degree of problem there. But in vitro meat, for example, I'm all for. As soon as we can create fake, synthetic, but real meat, basically, without a conscious animal, then I'm all for that. Sure.
Only through cloning.
I would second that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, but yeah, I mean, it would be nice if people did have those technological solutions to avoid the actual harming and killing of the real animals. Even though, of course, I'm fine with just eating plants. I don't know why that's so hard for other people if they need to go all with modern technological in vitro meat. That seems weird to me. I don't know why.
All right,
well,
guys, go ahead.
Well, for me, becomes a vegan. It's not cheap for me. I don't have a supermarket where I live at right now, so yeah. Going vegan for me is financially can't do it right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with it, but go ahead, George.
If addressing animal cruelty is something we're considering is too much to ask our human species right now, can we think of some issue that hasn't been yet debated, like abortion, and that isn't as, like, for example, with global poverty, there's so many complications now, like, is there something that we can, like,
global poverty, something that should have been solved by now?
Yeah, well, it's all controversial. Everything's controversial. So even with global poverty, people are voting Republican because they believe in capitalism, and capitalism obviously creates these mass inequalities where you have these lower levels of poverty and these higher levels of extreme wealth.
But my question is, like, I mean, how do we go about raising the conscience of humanity?
Yeah, it's all about education, and we got to get more people on board. The more people on board, the more education happens. It's like the same thing with slavery, right? So, and we're at the information age here, where we have the internet, in our means. So if we can convince enough people, we can get a ball rolling and hopefully convince more and more people, especially generationally, as people stop listening to their, these past remnants of bad thinking. But we'll see.
All right, but the thing is, there's not agreement about abortion. There's not agreement about, animals or about global poverty. Is there a kind of an issue that hasn't been addressed, or maybe just like how we treat each other as individuals, that, in other words, like, in order to teach people morality, you kind of
that the fact that we spend trillions of dollars on military spending, but yet we don't spend a dime on the poor.
No, I know.
Yeah, and here's the deal, guys. I think that all of these things have the same basic thing. Like, the only reason you care about global poverty is because people who are in poverty suffer. If they're in pain because they're starving, for example, or they're homeless and they're freezing in the cold or something, it always comes back to suffering. It always comes back to reducing harm, suffering, pain, whatever you call it. And of course, I agree with Trick that that's what morality or ethics is about, even though I know Mitch doesn't agree with that. But yeah.
No. That is precisely my stance. My stance.
He doesn't like calling it
about pain
morality or ethics.
Yeah, he just doesn't like to call it morality, right?
Yeah. So he's more. I would call your stance.
I can speak for
pragmatism.
myself. I think I could speak for myself.
Yeah, you can, Mitch. Sorry.
My stance would be that I think morality is a human construction. That's all I'm saying. I think morality is usually based upon pain and suffering, precisely that. And I think it's very reasonable that people do that. It seems I can understand why people who can feel pain construct systems where feeling pain is bad and doing things that cause pain is bad.
Right.
That's
yeah.
my particular
And
but
see,
they're not constructing that. Like feeling pain is bad.
I disagree. That's
Anyway.
like again, we've already got the argument. That
well,
is
yeah,
what-
we've already argued about that before. But here's the deal. Yes, what we call morality, these moral systems and stuff, are a human construction. But pleasure and pain themselves are not a human invention. You know, they're not a human
Agreed.
construction or invention themselves, which is why I say that humans are not the authors of the morality or ethics, because I say that because it's based on things that we did not invent, you know, that it's not a, you know what I'm saying? It's not something we just made up.
I think we have like a drive to seek pleasure and avoid pain. I think we have a drive to do what will create more pleasure and less pain. In other words, like John Locke, this British philosopher, defined goodness as what creates happiness. So the two are inextricably linked.
Yeah, Papa
Anyway.
was putting some stuff in the chat in case you guys haven't noticed, like saying it's not just about pleasure and pain, it's about health and fulfillment, allowing life to thrive. Which is, yeah, like...
Nah, I just care about pain and suffering.
Yeah, see, like
Yeah,
for
well,
me...
basically, health and fulfillment and allowing life to thrive is what constitutes
Pleasure.
what causes pleasure and pain, basically.
Yeah.
I agree
So-
with that.
We like most of us just use those words pleasure and pain as general terms that cover all this stuff. But yeah, some people can get more poetic and more specific using other words, but we kind of mean the same thing in a way.
I mean, if bad health was enjoyable and pleasurable and everybody loved it, then bad health wouldn't be a problem. People would try to be as unhealthy as possible.
Exactly.
Now, guys, while we as a species, as a civilization, you know, are really hard pressed to increase our global conscience. Let's say we're just considering global poverty and the factory farming. What's very ironic is that you know, actually the reason like we have so many poor and these factory farms, I believe, is because like the very small minority of rich people don't allow us to become more moral. But my point is that like climate change, with its increase in temperatures, in the average temperature of the atmosphere, basically is creating a risk that the rich can't protect themselves again. There's this idea of vectors, these organisms, including human beings, mosquitoes and all, that carry infectious diseases, right? So while...
Hey, WSD, you might want to mute your mic while there's Sonic the Hedgehog going on.
It is Sonic, right? That's what I...
That's Sonic the Hedgehog
That's
3.
Yeah.
Right, all right, so guys,
I can also identify Sonic.
Basically, while the rich can, you know, very easily move to areas of the planet that aren't, you know, affected by rising sea level and, you know, rising temperatures per se and all, they're much
I don't
less.
know. I'm the type of person to make it help.
Slow down.
Wait. Let George finish it.
Let me finish. While they, for the most part, can you know, with their wealth, move to regions that aren't all that much affected, at least for several hundred years, they can't protect themselves against pandemics. So in other words, as a strategy to basically wake them up, to say, listen, if you care about your children, even, you know, a pandemic, you know, an expert said that like a pandemic is very sure to happen over the next 2 generations. And that's like, you know, that's what, 40 years. So, you know, as a strategy to force, just like our laws force our morality, to force the rich to start doing the right thing and to force us to get them, you know, we might want to play up this pandemic thing, the idea that like climate change is not just about like the gradual increase of sea levels, and it's not just about, you know, these very incremental changes. You know, you can have a pandemic like the Spanish flu in 1918 killed 50 million people. You could have easily a pandemic that affects them. That might be a strategy to force them to activate their conscience, not for the sake of the poor, or for animals or other people, but for their own sake.
If we can convince them that global warming is real.
Yeah, and therein lies the challenge.
I think
well,
the
then
rich,
again, yeah.
I think the rich, for the most part, completely understand it. I think
Yeah.
they're smart people. They're educated yeah.
I don't know. You think so, but then you hear some of these deniers out there.
No, like Trump, for example. Trump denied climate change, right? But he's got this golf course on a shore. He buttressed it against sea level rise because he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting because basically the truth is, it's like it's almost like almost everybody tries to preserve their own life and they avoid pain. And if only they see that others are equal to them and they have that mindset, realizing we're all in this shit together, basically. Others are the same as us. I feel like if people get that, then somehow they will work out their moral differences.
Yeah, this is why the free will topic is so important, because as soon as people understand that there's no free will, then they have to understand that the whole notion of one person being more deserving of their wealth and well-being and things like that, it just doesn't work anymore. There's no person that's really more or less, really truly more or less deserving. Now, whether we use incentives and stuff like that is a different situation, but
I think one mistake we're making here is that we're assuming that we can sort of convince people who have much to gain from lies that they should value the truth.
Right.
This is another issue. It's just about values. Like for some people, it's this Orwellian idea that ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't believe in anthropogenic climate change. It's that they don't want to believe in it, and you can't. And convincing them that it's the right thing to do and we're in danger is not going to. It's not going to. I mean, trying to convince them is probably not going to work.
Well, what's weird about it?
They don't want that to be the case.
But I think part of that is because I sincerely believe they think they can escape the harm. I think that, like, with their money, they think that it's going to affect other people. It's not going to affect us and our families.
Yeah, but Mitch is right. A lot of people just don't reasonably think about these things. Like, how do you convince somebody that doesn't care about reason to use reason, or someone that doesn't care about logic to use logic? How do you convince that person?
With evangelicals, yeah, I mean, like, absolutely. But I think the rich, these people who are like pretty much controlling the world, they are not uneducated. They're not unintelligent.
Do you honestly think there is a single climate change denier on this planet who actually genuinely loves science and values science and has openly looked at the research and has determined that it's all overblown and that in actuality humankind has not contributed greatly to any kind of environmental disaster, much less the overall change in temperature of the earth over time? No, of course they come on, right? I mean, right?
But again, so they continue to deny it because I believe there's no personal cost to them. They're saying, it's going to affect, it's going to affect the poor countries first, which is like so tragic, so horrible. But it's not going to affect them and their families. So, like, if we can, scare the hell out of them, then say it is going to affect you. These pandemics, your money can't save you from that. It might be a strategy.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this, George, is this is a unique situation because it's one thing to scare someone with, well, if you do this, we are going to do this to you and threaten them like with laws. But this climate change, no one can escape from. It's not that we are going to punish them. It's sort of in a sense that the universe is going to punish them,
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's not an if, it's a matter of time, and then
it's not an if, it's a when.
I I just watched a video of a panel at Harvard discussing the Paris talks, and a reporter who went to it said that they actually completely ignored this issue of vectors, of disease vectors. And my guess, I mean, he didn't really go into why, but my guess is because it's so damn scary. I mean, like, that they, and that we have, it's kind of like we don't confront death because it's scary, And so, like, it's not just like the deniers; it's the rest of us who have to really confront, what we're facing.
George, I agree with all. Sorry, go ahead, Trick.
Well, I think there's.
Please.
You sure? Okay.
Yep.
I think that we might be overestimating how many people are actually thinking rationally here. I mean,
I think we are also.
If we look at in the U.S., we understand that the huge number of people that don't believe in evolution. So if people don't believe in evolution, why do you honestly think we're going to get them to believe in global warming or human global warming when there's these deniers that are feeding them misinformation about it? Who are they going to believe? How are they going to know who to believe?
Our Trick, the distinction is like with evolution, who cares? There is evolution, if there isn't, it doesn't affect them personally. But with this pandemic, disease vector threat, it would be a direct threat to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
But again, I'm going to have to lean towards Trick here again. I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying, but I don't think fear will even work. I don't even think you can really.
Yeah, because I feel like humanity they're not smart enough. I have no confidence. I lost all confidence in humanity, man.
Yeah, it'll be like the Titanic. They'll go down with the ship, George. If they get to live a life of luxury, and then all of a sudden the Earth is in shambles because of their negligence, they'll be like, oh, well, they'll just find some other ridiculous excuse. I guess this is God deciding.
It's like a train, basically. You see a train coming down there, you got a horn blown down the road. You can hear this horn, by the way. It's a loud-ass horn.
Well, I mean, yes.
But yet they're going to stay on the fucking track. They're not going to move out of the way of that fucking train. They're going to let the fucking motherfucker hit them.
Remember 2008 when the stock market crashed? There were a lot of very frightened people. They weren't saying to themselves, well, like our reign is over, that's it. They were doing everything they could to protect their livelihoods. And unfortunately for us, so many, like, even Democrat corrupt politicians, they got away with it. But they were very interested in protecting their interests.
Right. So once the problem happens, then people become really concerned about it. So, once
but it's going to be too fucking late. When it happens, it's going to be too fucking late.
That's right, Will. But
that's what I'm saying.
Imagine this hypothetical scenario, okay? So the conservatives, for a myriad of reasons, ignore all the environmental threats that we're facing right now. And then, as George so presciently predicted, there is this huge pandemic. Those same conservatives who were denying anthropogenic climate change decades earlier, let's say, will now say, oh, well, this is God destroying the earth because of homosexuality. You see what I'm saying? They'll find other. They're not going to be like, oh, wow, I was wrong. I guess I shouldn't be a concern. Maybe the liberals were right about a few things. That's not what's going to happen.
Well, Mitch, I agree with you.
Or maybe I'm being cynical.
A lot of conservatives and evangelicals, but again, like, you have to understand that this country is run by a population far less than 1%, and these people are not, for the most part, ideologically religious and all. I would guess these people are probably like as atheists as most of you guys are. They just they're into self-concern. They're into they're not ideological, and like, I don't know. I guess my point is, that like there are going to be people who are going to say, yes, climate change is actually, God's apocalypse, the rapture, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't think these are the people that are controlling the world.
But we have all this information on climate change right now. Why are people not taken it into consideration? Why are they not concerned?
Well, look at ExxonMobil. They're making billions and billions of dollars each year. And to the extent that they admitted it and started to work on our side, their shareholders would lose all that money. So like basically it's self-interest.
Right. So how do we combat against that self-interest?
That's what I was saying. Scared the hell out of them with like, guys, you are not, and if they care for their kids, who knows if they care for their kids, but like,
I think we already do that.
We already care for their kids.
Yeah, see, here's the deal, guys. If they don't really believe it's happening, then the fear won't work. It's like telling atheists they're going to hell.
And it's more than that, like basically the fear that have been saying, well, yes, by 2100, sea level is going to rise maybe 1.5 feet. So fine, they're saying like we will buy land that's like 200 miles inland, whatever. They think they can escape it.
Oh man.
Well, George, I hope you're right. I really do. I really hope.
Well, I can kind of agree with George on that. Like this is scary with the pandemic thing, but at the same time, I feel like they would use their money to get out of this shit. That's why this shit needs to be eliminated.
I would love it if reason just worked on everyone.
Oh yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice if reason just worked.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
What will probably happen, guys?
That's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where we can, educate people on reason and critical thinking skills, and then everything else flows from that. Once they have that base level structure, then they understand global warming and things like that because they're able to think critically.
Yeah, and guys, like of course, Papa was saying some amazing stuff in the chat, by the way, and I wish I knew how to get into all that. But since we're on the topic of climate change, it's very interesting because it is as if, like we were talking near the beginning, like you have to manipulate people's emotions because they don't respond to reason. You have to use emotions. You almost have to use superstition and mythology somehow in order to motivate them to do something.
So we can't use logic, basically.
The question is, how do we motivate people to value reason and logic? That's the question, because that's the base level, I think.
Yeah, but actually, Trick, in a certain sense, they like the people who control this world value reason and logic, but they also value self-interest.
Right.
In other words, they just
Yeah, here's an idea, guys. Now, here's a real good idea. Now, of course, we want to get people to accept reason and logic and evidence and science and all that, absolutely. But while we are in the process of figuring out how to do that, is there a way to use emotions and myths and superstitions to help propel them towards better behavior while we're trying to get them to become logical?
Absolutely, Chandler. We perfect the happiness pill. We bliss everybody on the planet out. Then, like, everybody's got what they want, and then all of a sudden, everybody becomes incredibly moral because there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I love that example, man. But yeah, and Papa's going, no, drugs are not the answer. Trust Papa, guys. He knows that drugs are not the answer. Remember our previous podcast about that? Oh, guys, you are so funny. But yeah, seriously, like, because okay, guys, I have to mention, Papa's begging me to mention, Peter and Papa and I, we were talking on Google Hangouts last night, and he wants to use stories and mythology, to reveal. There are like truths embedded in like Beauty and the Beast and Disney movies and all Aesop's fables. There are messages about ethics and stuff like that. And somehow that appeals to people. That has appealed to people just as certain stories of the holy books of the religions have appealed to people. And it's like, even though I personally want people to just use logic and reason and not need to recur stories. It's like people have some need for stories and for things to have some kind of universal meaning that they can grab onto. It's really hard. It's like people have an emotional, psychological thing that we have to cater to as much as we hate it.
Yeah, we could use storytelling and things like that to get points across, but I think we have to understand that there's a line that we have to draw between making people understand that that part is just a story that's trying to get across a point, and it's not really. It's just used metaphorically, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. The idea where people, sort of like how certain religions have moved towards, like, oh well, this stuff in the Bible didn't literally happen. It's a metaphor that reveals some truth, which is kind of weird. But yeah, if we can get to where we can use fiction to the extent where we get the point of the story and don't get all hung up over whether the story actually happened, then it won't conflict with being focused on logic, science, evidence, all that great stuff, so that there's no conflict between the two.
Guys, you know what we're up against? I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Minions, which is an animated film that's geared toward children. But basically, this shows how depraved we have become as a people. These cute, adorable three little minions, right? Their leader has died, right? And they're going out into the world to find a new leader. These three adorable little minions are looking for the vilest, most evil being possible to be their new leader. I mean, like, that shows you it's surreally sick that people would present a film like that. But that's our world.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the deal, guys. Now we know that, like of course, Paffo's going on about how influential a Christian myth has been, and just like the free will myth, which is of course a central feature of many religions, if we can find something that has the same sticking power as some of these religions, as the free will myth has been, something that sticks, that gets people to be more ethical and caring about life and reducing harm, that would sure be nice, because it seems like nothing we say sticks. Like, we're smart guys, we talk about important subjects, but it doesn't stick with people.
Yeah, and that's why you have to go through, use different methodologies. You can do it. You can use stories. You can use raw logic and reason for those that like that sort of thing, and you can use a little of both, I think. But and on my blog, that's what I do. I do some kind of storytelling sometimes, and other times I do just raw logic, or reasoning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that is the challenge. Like, our conscience as individuals and as a civilization has to be raised, and we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And quick.
Oh yeah, because the truth is, guys, like at this point, I am concerned that it's too late. We're all so doomed that there is nothing we can do at this point, which in a sense, makes all of our disagreements about morality or ethics, politics, kind of irrelevant, because we're all going to die real soon. Which is a weird way of looking at it, but sometimes I feel that way.
Right. And Chandler, I mean, think about it. I mean, like, we're at best here for like 80, 90, 100 years or whatever. And, human beings have been around, 30, 40, 50,000 years. The planets, the universe has been around 14 billion. So, like, in other words, like, this doesn't really matter. It can get as horrible as it gets. It can get as good as it gets. And it just doesn't matter taken in perspective. I mean, that's the fallback, that's the way we maintain our peace and happiness once everything else failed.
Yeah. It is interesting because, like, on one hand, sure, we're just like, when you put it in that way, like, our existence and events that happen now are such a tiny fragment of what goes on in this universe that it does seem insignificant in a sense, and yet it sure feels important to us at the time, obviously, too.
I don't think that the fact that there's all these, like say there's life on other planets or whatever, I don't, or all the past history that happened and all the horrible things. I don't think any of that really matters to how important things are today. So let's imagine that we just became today. Nothing else existed except for right now. The things that we do wouldn't matter any less or any more than if all that other stuff happened, in the universe or in the past. It makes no difference, really. You can't really judge it based on a scale, basically.
Also, if we start an organization, I don't know, we could call it IFWRO, for example. Even after we are gone, others can continue to develop that, or at least follow in our footsteps.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And yeah, actually, we've been going for almost 2 hours, and I should be in bed soon. So perhaps we do need to end this episode, and then Mitch can talk to us about the whole IFRO thing, because we were going to talk about that after the broadcast.
Okay, sounds good. Let's close it up.
All right. So you've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion, and we've been talking about a variety of topics. It started with how do we stop Trump, but then we got sidetracked onto every manner of issue, and I'm not sure how that happened. I'll have to listen to this before I figure out what went wrong. But that's typical. I hope that we got some good ideas out and that we do learn how to unite and get some situations improved. That's what I'm really hoping. Right now, I'm just not sure. I'm a little confused. But I really hope that you enjoy listening to this and you learn something, and leave us your comments, people, because we're trying to figure this out just like everybody else. I guess thank you for listening, and goodbye.